Over the past few years, many people have shared the same feeling. Money feels harder to earn. Investing feels harder to do. Effort does not seem to turn into results as easily as before. Whether it's property, stocks, or the broader economy, everything keeps swinging back and forth but never truly breaks out. More importantly, this is not just a problem in one country. It is happening almost everywhere in the world at the same time. So the question is all of this really just a coincidence, or is there a deeper pattern behind it? In fact, more than 100 years ago, someone was already thinking about the same question. In the early 20th century, there was a Soviet economist named Kondratiev. He noticed that the economy does not simply go up one year and down the next. Instead, over long periods of time, it follows a repeating rhythm. He studied nearly 200 years of macroeconomic data and eventually proposed a long-term economic cycle that lasts roughly 50 to 60 years. This later became known as the Kondratiev Cycle, or what we often call the long-wave cycle. We can understand what the Kondratiev cycle is through a real piece of history. Before the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, human production was extremely inefficient. Most goods relied on manual labor. Production was slow, costs were high, and overall economic growth stayed low for a long time. Then James Watt invented the steam engine, and this completely changed how people produce goods. Tasks that once required dozens of people in several days could now be done by machines in just a few hours. Productivity jumped dramatically, unit costs fell quickly, and businesses began to earn profits never seen before. This stage is the upward phase of the Kondratiev cycle, also called the recovery phase. Its core features are that new technology starts to be applied, productivity clearly improves, and the economy shows high growth with low inflation. As steam engine technology continued to mature, it stopped being limited to a few factories and spread across the entire society. Factories expanded, capital poured in, employment increased, and the economy entered a full boom. The key features of this stage are high growth and high inflation. As productivity rises quickly and society becomes wealthier overall, demand is released rapidly, pushing prices higher. But this is also where the problems begin. Once the new technology is fully adopted, it no longer provides a competitive edge. Everyone uses the same machines and the same technology. Productivity expansion starts to exceed real demand. Excess capacity builds up, competition intensifies, and profit margins are squeezed. To keep making money, companies begin to expand through heavy borrowing. Speculation increases and bubbles gradually form. The economy then enters a downturn phase, characterized by low growth and high inflation. Eventually, when the technological dividends are mostly exhausted and demand growth cannot keep up with capacity expansion, the economy slows down. Corporate debt pressures accumulate, investment willingness declines, and both businesses and households cut back on spending. The economy finally enters a depression phase, marked by low growth and low inflation, and the wealth effect disappears. This was the first Kondratiev cycle driven by the Industrial Revolution. From the emergence of new technology to recovery, boom, downturn, and depression, the entire process lasted around 50 years. History did not stop with the Industrial Revolution. Railways and steel, electrification and chemicals, oil and automobiles, information technology. Every Kondratiev cycle follows the same underlying logic. New general-purpose technologies drive major productivity leaps, but as they become widely adopted, the benefits are gradually competed away and lose their marginal advantage. The economy then enters an adjustment phase. So where are we now in the Kondratiev cycle? Looking at the historical timeline, we are currently in the fifth Kondratiev cycle, driven by information technology. This cycle roughly began in the late 1970s to early 1980s, alongside the rise of computers, the internet, and communication technologies. The global economy entered a long growth cycle powered by information technology. But just like every Kondratiev cycle before it, as the technology matured, became standardized, and was fully adopted, its dividends inevitably started to fade. After the year 2000, and especially after the global financial crisis in 2008, this information technology-driven cycle gradually moved from prosperity toward its end. Looking back from today, we are now in the depression phase of the fifth Kondratiev cycle. What does the depression phase usually look like? The most direct sign is that money becomes harder to make. Companies find their profit margins constantly squeezed. Costs are hard to cut. Demand struggles to recover. And many businesses look busy on the surface, but make less real profit. In this broader economic environment, conflicts tend to intensify. Common examples include geopolitical tensions and regional wars. In recent years, events like the Russia-Ukraine conflict and repeated instability in the Middle East have all occurred against the backdrop of global economic pressure. At the same time, countries become more focused on their own interests. Protectionism rises, trade frictions increase, and tariffs, restrictions, and sanctions become more common. From the tariff disputes starting in 2018 to the repeated trade confrontations in recent years, the logic behind them is largely the same. Another very clear feature is that asset prices come under pressure or even decline. During the previous boom phase, many assets were pushed up in an environment of high leverage and high expectations. Once the economy enters the depression phase, demand weakens, capital becomes cautious, and markets begin to deleverage. In this environment, it is naturally hard for asset prices to keep rising. At the same time, debt problems become more visible. With slower growth, the high levels of debt accumulated in the past start to create pressure. Whether it's businesses, households, or governments, everyone feels that repaying debt becomes harder. Interest expenses take up a larger share, cash flows tighten, and risk events happen more frequently. In this environment, corporate profit margins are squeezed and uncertainty rises. Companies are reluctant to expand, hiring slows, investment is reduced, and many long-term plans are repeatedly delayed. These changes eventually flow through to everyday life. Jobs become harder to find. Good positions become scarcer. Even for those who have jobs, pay rises slow down and promotions become harder. As a result, many people share the same feeling. Money is harder to earn. Opportunities are fewer. The path upward feels narrower. This is the most real and common social experience when the Kondratiev cycle enters its depression phase. So what does the Kondratiev cycle mean for ordinary people, and why is it important to understand it? In my view, its greatest value is that it helps you better understand the environment you're living in. This understanding is crucial for asset allocation and long-term decisions. Many times, investment success is not about how smart you are, but whether you do the right thing at the right time. For most people, there may only be 2 or 3 wealth opportunities in a lifetime that truly change their destiny. To capture these opportunities, you need to understand the long-term economic cycle, the Kondratiev cycle. Only when you know which stage you are in can you be prepared and have the courage to act when real opportunities arrive. In the next video, I will combine this with my own investment portfolio and share how I am allocating assets at this stage and what changes might come next. If you do not want to miss it, remember to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next video.